Recently, involution has been a hot term in Chinese media. Let's use an example to explain what involution is. This is Wang Yang, a student at an elite university in Beijing. For the summer assignment during his freshman year, he had to make an electronic calendar. Assignments were graded on the basis that the more calendar functions a student submits, the higher the grade. In order to receive a high score, each student tried to make his or her work as close as the full mark as possible. This means students will keep adding new features to their digital calendars as long as there is a place for improvement, until the deadline. On campus, many students use involution to describe this type of fierce and irrational competition. Others say that involution is excessive, as well as vicious competition. It is evident that there are differences in opinion on the concept of involution, but we can see that involution cannot be separated from the word competition. Understanding what type of competition is behind involution will be an essential step to defining it. To do so, let's begin with the origin of the term involution. In 1936, American anthropologist Alexander Goldenweiser used involution to describe a culture that fails to adapt and expand its economy and only continue to develop toward internal complexity. In 1963, Clifford Geertz used the concept of involution in his early work, Involution of Agriculture, the process of ecological change in Indonesia, to analyze a labor-filled agriculture mold in Indonesia's Java Island. He concludes that involution refers to the phenomenon in which a society cannot be transformed into another model after reaching a certain form. In The Peasant Family and Rural Development in the Yangtze Delta, written by Huang Zongzhi, Geertz's definition was further developed. He called the method of increasing total output by investing a large amount of labor on limited land without development as involution. To sum up, the premise of involution is fierce competition in a limited and closed space, but not all fierce competition can be called involution. Here we can divide competition into two categories, win-win and no-win competition. In win-win competition, the harder each person in the group works, the more he or she gains. Both sides can receive rewards for their work, and competition space is open. However, in no-win competition, competition is exclusive because resources are limited. The nature of involution is a no-win competition. For instance, when the chances of entering high school is limited, only some students will have the opportunity to do so, while the others do not. The phenomenon of involution is an increase in competition input and complexity, which cannot produce a win-win situation for individuals. For instance, when applied to education, students spend more time and do more and more practice exam-style questions, raising the difficulty. However, under the condition that the amount of degrees do not increase, there are only a few people who can win the competition. After learning the definition of involution, why do students participate in involution? As discussed earlier, China's lack of educational opportunities means that students have to compete fiercely for spots in schools. Tsinghua and Peking universities, for example, have a mere 0.03 acceptance rate. Even 985 and 211 have only a 5% acceptance rate. How good do students have to be to get into this 5%? It's a shame that these are the high standards that many people want to achieve. This makes chasing these ready-made standards the primary purpose of learning. Everyone is competing for resources on a narrow racetrack, so there's a no-win competition. This type of mindset consumes a lot of time and energy, creating an endless cycle in which the amount of time consumed only increases. For example, the class representative spent 6 hours studying on the weekend and was praised by the teacher in class. From then on, the class monitor also spent 6 hours studying. The monitor's behavior will make other students want to study for 6 hours as well to stay in the competition. The class representative from before sees others slowly catching up with him and decides to spend 8 hours. The other students didn't want to fall behind, so they spent 8 hours too. This creates an endless cycle in which time is consumed and competition becomes more and more intense. But we can find that when students work hard individually, there will most likely be improvements academically. However, if everyone took more time and effort to improve their academic performance, average academic standards will rise. So when you spend more time studying, are you really beating other competition? In other words, is it worth all this time studying for an uncertain increase in personal competitiveness? Moreover, when involution reaches a certain point, students must give up doing other activities. This will have a negative impact on students' health. For instance, in China, scholars sleep an average of 7.23 hours a day, while students in Macau and Hong Kong sleep even less at 6.77 hours. We all know that adolescents should sleep 8 to 10 hours daily. Such an energy-intensive lifestyle will cause students to eventually burn out, and may increase blood pressure or even lead to psychological problems such as depression. Additionally, when the involution time exceeds a certain level, students must give up time used to cultivate their interests if they want to continue being part of involution. As a result, everyone will become a studying machine, losing their personal strengths and reducing the diversity of outstanding talents. Based on the contents discussed earlier, it is not difficult to see that involution can help students gain better opportunities in the short run. The negative impact of involution on individuals, such as the loss of time to develop personal strengths, interests, and the danger it brings to our health, outweigh the positive impacts it brings in the long run. The same is true for our society. Excessive involution will bring about the loss of labor force, so we do not advocate involution.